Shalom, and welcome back to Each One Reach One. Let us begin by giving all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High Yahweh, Bahashem Hamashiach Yahweh Shai, Wahal Rakal Kadash. We're continuing our lesson today, everybody. Stumbling stones. All right, we got through that lesson. That lesson is pretty much in the bag. So I'm at the portion now where I'm talking about stumbling stones in particular. All right, I ended my last video in talking about a major stumbling stone, which is geography, right? We know our enemies continually lie. They lie about the peoples, they lie about us, they lie about them, they hide this, they hide that, and they hide the truth about the lands. We can't be foolish to think that they have not been hiding the truth about the lands this entire time. That the only thing they lied about was, us being Israel, calling us Africans and so forth. But everything else they told the truth about, right? That's a foolish mentality to have as it pertains to understanding, because in our understanding, we understand that they go astray as soon as they be born telling lies, right? We know how the wicked are. So you have to deconstruct everything they told you. You got to do just like the police do. When a cop is found to be corrupt, what do? They open up all their cases. Now because we know you have corruption in your jacket. We got to go into all your cases. We got to open up all your cases now and put them under the microscope. Everything you've ever been involved with has to come under the microscope now, right? What do we do when we know somebody be pathological liars in our personal lives? What do? You gotta dig for yourself to find the truth about something somebody tells you when you know that person is a habitual liar, correct? Isn't that what you do? You listen to them speak and you're like, yeah, okay. And then if you really want to know what really happened, you got to go dig, you got to go ask questions. You got to go do your own work to find out the truth of the matter, because you know for a fact that it wasn't what they told you it was, that it didn't go the way they said it did, right? Why don't we apply the same line of thinking to our enemies, to our greatest enemies, right? We should. We got to dig, because nothing new under the sun. They've been doing this forever. They came out of those caves. They came into power, right? Painting over our images and so forth, right? Changing everything to try to make it look one way, to try to take us out of history, try to rewrite us out and write themselves in. This is what they've always done, right? Okay, so a major stumbling stone is the, Stockholm syndrome, and trusting and believing in your enemy. That's a stumbling stone. Not questioning them is a stumbling stone. Allowing them to teach our children, to teach us everything that we know. And that's the thing, indoctrination. You get the kids when they're 5 years old and they force you at the threat of jail to send your children to their schools, right? Why do you think that is? Because they know if they get you early enough, they'll be able to control your thought process, and they will lay the groundwork for everything that you know, believe, and understand. And they know that after 12 years, 12 levels of doing this at the minimum, that they got your brain. They got you perfectly written. They got you programmed, to their program, and that you will fight to defend their programming. All right, we're going to get today this video, falsifying Egyptian history to show Jews built pyramids. This video is done by YouTube channel Redirecting. All right, fair use. It's for edification and teaching purposes only. No monetization going on here. There's no monetization going on my channel at all. I don't try to make any money off of this. It's not what it's about. It's about the edification of Israel. All right, fair use. All right, so let's get it. Let's see what this is about. Oh, hold on. Wait a minute, you guys. Hold on. Wait a minute. Wait. I just thought about it. Let me go ahead and share my sound. Otherwise, you're going to miss all of this. You ain't going to hear any of it. I'm glad I thought about that right now. Okay, just share the sound. All right, now you'll be able to hear. Let's go.
Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the channel. I have a very interesting topic I'm going to be discussing today. There is an article on the Jerusalem Post where they're asking this question. They're saying, have Israeli spies falsified Egyptian history to show Jews built the pyramids?
They wouldn't do
They're
that.
asking, is this a process? Is this something that they are doing? Are they falsifying Egyptian history to show that the Jews built the pyramids?
Oh,
And so I'm going to let you take a listen at the
would
article. And
never.
of course, I have plenty to say on this, and I will be right back.
Israel is secretly infiltrating foreign archaeological teams in Egypt in a plot to falsify Egyptian history to show the Jews built the pyramids.
What? You mean these people would go through the lens of falsifying history for their own benefit? Wow. Wow. I never would have guessed that they would do this, that it was in their character to lie. Why would they want to falsify history?
An Egyptian researcher claimed this week. Amir Gamal of the Non-Stop Robberies movement told Egypt's Alaf newspaper Israel is attempting to prove Jewish influences on the Pharaonic era by altering Egyptian history in favor of the Jews. According to Gamal, foreign archaeologists are secretly aiding the Jewish state by undertaking espionage and counterfeiting of Egyptian history. Gamal told Alaf Israel does not send its own Jewish archaeological teams to Egypt because that would expose its plot. Instead, Israel sends missions to Egypt under the guise of other nationalities while making sure the leaders of the foreign archaeological missions are Jewish, he said. In addition to claiming the Jews constructed the pyramids, Gamal said Israel is plotting to prove that the Egyptian king Sheshonq I, the founder of the 22nd dynasty in the middle of the 10th century BCE, was the biblical king Shishak. Biblical accounts say Shishak invaded Judah during King Rehoboam's reign and took treasures from the first temple in Jerusalem. Gamal believes Israel is seeking to claim that gold and jewelry found at an ancient burial site at Tanis in Egypt are part of Solomon's treasures. This is not the first time the alleged role of the Jews in ancient Egyptian history has caused controversy in Egypt. Earlier this year,
What we really need just to lay the groundwork of the habits, what their MO. We see their MO. Look, listen. Talking about they're going over here to try to find gold, right? Yeah, right, man. You think they're just now after all of these years deciding they're going to try to go over there and find some ancient gold? Nah, man, they would have done that a long time ago if they believed it was there. But riddle me this: why did the Europeans sail all the way to the Americas and they were in search of all of this gold and everything else? What would lead them to believe that in America there would be all sorts of gold and other wealth there for them to get? What is it? What is it that led them to believe that? It was the fact that they understood that America was an old world. They understood the stories of Solomon and our history and everything else. They knew it was our people. That was the ancient lands, and that's where you should go if you were going to go trying to find the mass amount of wealth in the earth. You would go. That's what they did. Otherwise, if it was in that land of Israel over there, why didn't they go there? Why did they bypass that piece of land over there to come all the way to the Americas in search of great wealth? To look and dig up all this great wealth. They came to the Americas. They didn't go to that land of Israel over there. They didn't go to Africa. They got a place called the Gold Coast and everything else. But when they went searching for gold, they bypassed the Gold Coast in Africa and went all the way to America. Imagine that. Imagine that. All right, but let's get out of here. We're continuing our discussion about the stumbling stone of geography. All right, we're going to get a video from YouTuber Karameo Ahau. He does great work. He has many great works in his library that I suggest you guys go and check out when you get time. Again, you don't got to agree with everything anyone says in order for them to be telling the truth about something in particular. All right. Get the babies out of the bathwater, eat the meat, spit out the bones. All right. Because there's a popular belief within certain Israelite sects that if you aren't in 100% agreement with everything someone says, then you got to throw everything out. And that's just patently false. And it's ignorant. It's an ignorant approach to scholarship, to scholarly activity. Right. So you can't profess, to be a seeker of wisdom and you throw out everything someone says because there's something that you don't agree with that they believe in or say. That's just idiocy, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and get into it. Thanks for this great work, Hermel, by the way, man. Fair use, man. You know what I'm saying? For the edification of our people. All right, let's rock.
Some things that I don't think you even knew existed. It goes against everything Manifest Destiny teaches about Native Americans. And I want you to know this part of our history because people erased it, and we'll get to that later on in the program. Erased it intentionally. Erased it intentionally. That's an important part of it.
Erased it intentionally. Sounds like people are trying to hide something about the Americas. Why are they trying to hide the truth about ancient America? What's going on? You saw the previous clip, right? Ancient Egyptians in the Grand Canyon? Question mark. Why the question mark? Because they know what's there. They know what's in there. What's in there would lead them to believe that, this was Egypt over here. Everything that all the stuff they found over there, in there, leads them to believe that the civilizations who was there were the Egyptians. All these Egyptian artifacts and writings and artwork and all of these different things, everything they're digging up, they're finding the old world over here. Why do you think they don't really let people go in there like that? But let's continue.
That later on in the program. Erased it intentionally. Erased it intentionally. That's an important part of it. America's history didn't begin with Christopher Columbus came over. There were ancient cities with advanced architectures. Christopher Columbus came over.
Wait a minute. Let's not skip past this because I don't know. I know it's on the screen, but just because it's on the screen doesn't mean people are reading it. But let's not skip past it. In America, rediscovered in the 15th century and repopulated in the 17th, was recovered Egypt. What? Was recovered Egypt and the promised land. What? Or the land of the constellation of the eagle. All right, let us ride.
That's an important part of it. America's history didn't begin with Christopher Columbus came over. There were ancient cities with advanced architectures all across North America. Did you know that? Hundreds of years before Columbus came. You always think, oh, the Indians, they didn't scour the land. No, not true. These were cities as large as any in the world at the time. London or Rome, they were metropolises. Archaeologists say they have found evidence of 200,000 actual cities of mound-like structures all across North America that were here long before Columbus.
Mound-like structures all over the Americas. Mound-like structures all over the Americas. And if you understand what these mounds are, they're burial mounds, they're sepulchres, they're burial sites, right? Ancestral burial sites. And they were all over the America. Countless burial mounds all over the Americas. The mound builder civilization and that they talk about in the Americas, right? The overwhelming majority of the mounds found in the world were found over here in the Americas. Why is that important? Because if you understand what burial mounds are, that's a Israelite practice. That was a ancient practice of Hebrew Israelites, how we buried our people. That was a cultural thing. When Father Abraham purchased that land, we call it a cave and a mountain that he buried Sarah in, and that he was then buried in, and Jacob was buried in, and Jacob and Esau fought over, inherited, and so forth. What was that? It was family burial mounds, places where the families would be buried. Burial mounds. Why over here in the Americas was the overwhelming majority of the mounds found over here and not over there? If that's the old world, there should be many more burial mounds found over there than over here, but that is not the case. Care to guess why? And again, and also someone asked me before, man, if this is the old world, man, then we're in Egypt's over here, man, then we're all the pyramids, man. You see all these pyramids? There's many pyramids over here still in existence, but many have been built over. They've built other buildings and structures over the pyramids, or they've torn them down. But A quick search can tell you that the overwhelming majority of the pyramids were found in the Americas. And not only that, but the most advanced pyramids were found here. Let's go.
But we don't know anything about them. Why? Why?
If you're trying to lose belly fat,
So this video is going to be choppy in nature, all right? Because every time these ads come up, I'm going to stop the video, and then I'm going to get past the ads and so forth, and then we're going to kick back up. Because if I do it with all that this having to correct this every time that it happens, then this video is going to be a lot longer than it needs to be, because they don't give you the ability to skip the ads anymore. So what I have to do is I have to like hit the refresh button, you know what I'm saying? And then that'll take me like to the beginning of the video. Then I got to go and find the place where it last was at and then cue it up there. So it's going to be that kind of a process. So just understand it's going to be choppy. All right. All right, let's continue.
Of 200,000 actual cities of mound-like structures all across North America that were here long before Columbus. But we don't know anything about them. Why? Why?
Most Americans have no idea that ancient cities with advanced architectures once dotted the ancient North American landscape. Director Kennedy has since coined a name for such places.
What I call hidden cities. I use the term because these were very big places. There were more people, we now know, in Cahokia, across from St. Louis, than there were in London or Rome.
For more than 50 years, evidence of humans in America much older than 13,400 years ago was simply dismissed, and anybody who attempted to go that way would not get research funding and would be ostracized by their colleagues and literally have their lives ruined. And this is most unfortunate, and it's not how science should proceed, because we now know that human beings have been in the Americas for 10.
Anyone talking about the truth about the Americas would have their research funding taken, their lives would be ruined. Why? Why? Because the greatest cover-up in human history is going down, and it centers around the Americas. The greatest cover-up in human history centers around America and what? And the people of the Most High. You think this is a coincidence? No, they both go hand in hand. The people of the Most High and these lands, the Americas. This big controversy. It is a reason for this.
Tens of thousands of years before 13,400 years ago. In fact, the latest evidence puts them back more than 130,000 years in the Americas. And what that says to me is, if they were saying before that humans didn't come until 13,400 years ago and nobody should look, nobody should dig deeper, now we know they were there 130,000 years ago. That's more than 100,000 years of the American story that has not been told entirely because of the dogmatism of archaeology. And now reluctantly they're having to accept, all of the institutions are accepting, well, we're sorry, we got it wrong. But
and all of you are going to have to do this as well. You're going to have to reluctantly admit that you got it wrong. All right, but better to reluctantly admit that you got it wrong than to not admit it at all because of your cognitive dissonance.
Some who authored the very first publications of the Smithsonian, or the earliest books on North American antiquities, described and illustrated things that would surprise most of us today.
Some people, such as Caleb Atwater and Squire and Davis, they believe the artifacts that they were finding around these mounds and cities and earthen structures, that this was representative of an advanced civilization. This is the very first publication of the Smithsonian Institution. This is the work that Squire and Davis were able to complete in the late 1830s, the early 1840s, in what's called the Ohio Territory, which primarily worked in the state of Ohio, showing the monuments and the vast cities and the greatness that they must have had.
Give me just 1 minute and I'll
Some of the sites that they surveyed and the maps that they made, is our only knowledge that these sites even existed now, because they were destroyed, or they were intruded upon, and their original configurations were greatly altered.
The real question is, why were these sites not preserved? And why are these advanced civilizations not more commonly known of today?
They're hiding something. Why weren't they preserved? Because they're trying to hide something.
So I'm going to read from this book. It's called The Ancient Mystic Oriental Masonry, Its Teachings, Rules, Laws, Present Usages, which govern the order of the present day. Alright, so in this book, just wanted to show a couple of things here to correlate what we've been learning about the true old world. It says, we are not indebted to either ancient Egypt for either religion or masonry, but to America. But it says, we are not indebted to either ancient Egypt for either religion or masonry, but to America. It is a fact that at Memphis, Egypt, in the pyramids, under the guidance of the kings of the mystic rites of masonry, were worked many thousands of years ago, but at that time Egypt and the continent of America were one and the same.
Get that again. Let's get it again. All right. We are not indebted to either ancient Egypt for either religion or masonry, but to America. It is a fact that at Memphis, Egypt, in the pyramids, under the guidance of the kings, the mystic rites of masonry were worked many thousands of years ago. But at that time, Egypt and the continent of America were one and the same.
It says, in America, rediscovered in the 15th century and repopulated in the 17th, was recovered Egypt and the promised land. All right? Egypt and the promised land, right? Called Atlantis, the Antediluvian World by Ignatius Donnelly. This was from New York, Harper & Brothers, Franklin Square in 1882. That Atlantis was the region where man first rose from a state of barbarism to civilization. Also, point 4, he says that it became in the course of ages a populous and mighty nation, from whose overflowing the shores of the Gulf of Mexico, the Mississippi River, the Amazon, the Pacific coast of South America, all the way to the Pacific coast of South America. What's there? Peru, right? The Mediterranean, the west coast of Europe and Africa, the Baltic, the Black Sea, and the Caspian were populated by civilized nations. Point 8, that the oldest colony formed by the Atlanteans was probably in Egypt, whose civilization was a reproduction of that of the Atlantic islands, that the implements of the Bronze Age of Europe were derived from Atlantis. And if you know about the Michigan mines, you'll see that a lot of the Bronze Age metal that the Greeks and Romans used was coming from America, being mined up there. You can research that. Alright, and it continues, says the Atlanteans were also the first manufacturers of iron. Point 10, that the Phoenician alphabet, parent of all European alphabets, was derived from an Atlantis alphabet, which was also conveyed from Atlantis to the Mayas of Central America. Those parts of America over which it ruled were, as we will show thereafter, Central America, Peru, and the valley of the Mississippi, occupied by the Mound Builders. Alright? Moreover, he tells us that this vast power was gathered into one, that is to say, from Egypt to Peru, it was one consolidated empire. It was called Civilization and the Ancient Egyptians by Katanga A. Bongo. The idea that it was Europeans who introduced civilization to Africa is one of the biggest historical myths.
Idea that it was Europeans who introduced civilization to Africa is one of the biggest historical myths.
In fact, evidence from archaeology, oral history, traditional languages, and cultural practices strongly indicate that it was the South American Indians. Again,
proof, The archaeology, oral history, traditional languages, and cultural practices strongly indicate that it was the South American Indians who introduced civilization to Africa.
The South American Indians who introduced civilization to Africa. Who introduced civilization to Africa? According to this researcher, South American Indians. Some 7,000 years ago, long before the Greek and Roman civilizations emerged, the South American Indians had introduced civilization to Africa, thereby making Africa the second continent in the world to become civilized. Spurred on by their South American Indian guests, the Africans built great empires that lasted for several thousand years at a time. Contrary to popular myth, in the Western world, the advent of Europeans destroyed civilization in Africa rather than made it. From the scholarly journal, The Foreign Quarterly Review, Volume 18, published in London in 1837. So again, this is mostly a recount of an expedition done in 1805, 1806, 1807 by this guy named Dupax and his team, a French team. All right, so we're just going to belly flop to this part right here. It says, we have said that this is an inquiry almost new to the public. We can deduce an extraordinary instance of the ignorance prevailing among literary and scientific men in general, of the immense sources of information from which they have been excluded. All right, this information has not been available to a lot of scholars. All right, by the voluminous pedantry employed upon the subject. It was after the publication of Lord Kingborough's work, that is to say in 1831, that a correspondent of the Literary Gazette announced a great discovery by a certain Colonel Galindo in New Spain. This now remember, New Spain, they're talking about that whole area of Mexico, Mesoamerica, a little bit of the Southwest U.S., right, and Florida. This gentleman, it says, going out one fine morning in the neighborhood of Palenque, stumbled on the ruins of an ancient city, nearly as wonderful in the architectural details of those of Egyptian Thebes as wonderful in the architectural details of those of Egyptian Thebes. So is this the original Thebes?
I want you to take a look at this. This is going to blow your mind. See this here? First, let me show you the Great Pyramid of Giza. You've seen this, one side of the Great Pyramid of Giza. If you measure it, it is from the bottom to the apex 606 feet. That's important. That's an ancient unit of measurement. It's referred to as the stade. Now I want to show you this. These are the Newark earthworks. They're here in Ohio. Yes, Ohio. The earthworks are made, they're structures that are made now of earth that has been built up from the ground in a perfect circle. Here it is, a perfect circle and a perfect octagon. But they were built by the ancient Hopewell civilization. They date back from 300 BC to 400 AD. So let's look at these structures here. Bring this up. I want to show you something. If you square the inside of the octagon, here's a square and here's a square. If you square it, this is what surveyors do when they're measuring. They square the circle, and then they divide that area into 4 equal parts, or cubes, and then you find that each cube is made up of 606 feet, 606 feet, 606 feet, 606 feet, 606. It's made up of stades, exactly the same. Now, if that's not interesting enough,
quitting my
exactly the same. Now, if that's not interesting enough,
The first and strongest conviction which will flash on the mind of every ripe antiquarian while surveying the long series of Mexican and Toltecan monuments preserved in the various works to which we have briefly called attention is the similarity which the ancient monuments of New Spain bear to the monumental records of ancient Egypt. Again, so their main purpose to writing this article, to doing this work, all right, is to show you, right, to show the antiquarian or somebody who likes history, who actually researches these things, is to call to the attention the similarity which these ancient monuments of New Spain, right, Mexico, bear to the monumental records of ancient Egypt, all right? Similarity. Where is the true old world? While surveying them, the glance falls with familiar recognition on similar graduated pyramids, on similar marks of the same primeval Ophite worship, on vestiges of the same triune and solar deity, on planispheres and temples, which, though characterized by some distinctions entirely American, are not less worthy of the notice of the Egyptian antiquarian. Alright, so he's saying if you've studied the Egyptian archaeology, relics, history, then you would see automatically basically the same things over here in Mexico. Strong resemblances, similarity to the same history. Alright. On relics, again, of palaces, at once noble in their architecture and beautiful in their proportions and decorations. On monuments, sepulchral, domestic, religious, or warlike, which deserve the designation of Cyclopean as much as any that are now extant in Italy or Greece. On idols and sculptures, some of rude and some of finished workmanship, exhibiting different eras of civilization, and often presenting the most striking analogy in posture and gesture to the monumental style of sculpture and of statuary preeminent called Egyptian. Lastly, the eye of the antiquarian cannot fail to be both attracted and fixed by evidences of the existence of two great branches of the hieroglyphical language, both having striking affinities with the Egyptian, and yet distinguished from it by characteristics perfectly American. One is the picture writing peculiar to the Mexicans, and which displays several striking traits of assimilation to the anaglyphs in the historical tablets of the Egyptian temples. The second is a pure hieroglyphical language, to which little attention has been hitherto called, which appears to have been peculiar to the Toltecans, or some still more ancient nation that preceded the Mexicans, which was as complete as the Egyptian in its double constituency of a symbolic and a phonetic alphabet, and which, as far as we can judge, appears to have rivaled the Egyptian in its completeness. Again, they're saying that this language, right, this hieroglyphical system, not only symbolic in pictures, but phonetic. It sounds like how Egyptians would sound, right? The phonetic alphabet of the Egyptian. And also appears to have rivaled the Egyptian in its completeness, while in some respects it excelled it in its regularity and beauty. So it excelled even more complex and beautiful than the Egyptian.
Excelled it in its regularity and beauty, showing that it came first. It came first, right?
In hieroglyphics, all right?
Here's the thing we should be asking ourselves. I don't know the story of these. Do you know that? Did you know that? Do you live in Ohio and did you know that? Why not?
There were tens of thousands.
Why not? Did you know this? No, you didn't know this. Like, same question he's asking. You should be asking yourself, why didn't I know this? Why did they try to hide all this? What is it they were trying to hide? Why did they not want this to get out? What was the big thing that they were trying to keep under wraps? Why such a big secret? Why is most of the mystery and most of the cover-up having to do with the Americas?
Of architectural consequences that are now hidden behind our junk.
All of this greatness from the old world is hidden now behind our current junk. They've covered it up. They've hidden. You can't see what's really here. They've covered it up. They worked hard to cover up what's really here for a reason. Why do you think they've gone through this great length to uncover, I'm sorry, not uncover, but to cover up what was already here?
And our architectural achievements.
We now know that advanced ancient civilizations once inhabited North America, but have become lost to our modern memories, in part because of 19th century political and scientific agendas.
Oh, so the information has become lost due to scientific and political agendas. What agendas would that be? What is the greatest cover-up? What is the world's greatest agenda? What would it be to you? It would have to do with the people of the children of the Most High, right? His people, who they are, the fact that they even exist, right? And obviously where they come from, their lands. That would all be tied together as the major cover-up of the world, right?
When following the course of the constellations, those immovably and perpetually fastened upon America are reached, it will appear that while all that is sublime in the historic past centers upon Egypt, all that is sublime in the prehistoric past centers upon America, Atlantis, and as the curtain which has hitherto concealed a prehistoric connection between the peoples of ancient Egypt and of America is lifted, it will be seen that the people of the eagle on the Nile being descended from the original people of the eagle on this continent. The twain are one in that prehistoric America was the original Egypt or Eagle Land prior to the mighty expansion, in the days of Peleg, when the earth was divided and the great globe itself was nearly rent asunder. Again,
remember, I covered in my last lesson talking about Peleg and when all the earth was divided, where they were to begin with, right? When everyone started moving, remember that? Remember?
that prehistoric America was the original Egypt, alright? The original Egypt was here in America.
Students with ADHD
and perpetually fastened upon America are reached, it will appear that while all that is sublime in the historic past centers upon Egypt,
while all that is sublime in the historic past centers around Egypt, we're going to be back up. It will appear that while all that is sublime in the historic past centers upon Egypt, while it would appear all that is sublime, meaning, well, in actuality, though, all that is sublime in the prehistoric past centers upon the Americas. And this is talking about when following the course of the constellations, meaning you can use biblical information, biblical, to understand what was going on, the constellations and different things that gave them understanding of the lands and where certain things were. When you look at those things, that shows you that the old world, that the Bible, all of that took place over here in the Americas. That's what they're telling you. That the Americas was the scene, right? Was the setting for all the biblical stories.
all that is sublime in the prehistoric past centers upon America, Atlantis, and as the curtain which has hitherto concealed a prehistoric connection between the peoples of ancient Egypt and of America is lifted, it will be seen that the people of the eagle on the Nile being descended from the original people of the eagle on this continent. The twain are one in that prehistoric America was the original Egypt or Eagle Land prior to the mighty expansion, in the days of Peleg, when the earth was divided and the great globe itself was nearly rent asunder. Again, that prehistoric America was the original Egypt, alright? The original Egypt was here in America.
A brief enumeration of a few facts will show upon what slight foundation Dr. Robertson must have built his careless appreciation of the monuments of New Spain. A mania existed in his time, as it does now, in favor of the stupendous importance of everything connected with the Egyptian monuments. Now, what is the simple fact? Pyramids, not inferior to Egyptian, exists in many parts of Mexican territories and of New Spain. And we can include, all over the Americas, thousands of pyramids, all over all the continents of
thousands of
the
pyramids and
Americas.
thousands of burial mounds.
All right. Some of these pyramids are of larger base than the Egyptian, and composed of equally permanent materials or greater materials. We know UB2 News, shout out to him for putting out that video showing us how it was all concrete. King Drop also showed that it was all like the so-called Roman material or temples, right? It's not megalithic like in the Americas. Vestiges of noble architecture and sculpture are visible at Cholula, Otumba, Oaxaca, Mitlan, and Tlaxcola. The mountain of Texcoca or Texcosa is nearly covered with ruins of ancient buildings. The ancient town of Palenque exhibits not only excellent workmanship in the temples, palaces, private houses, and baths, but a boldness of design in the architect, as well as skill in the execution, which will not shrink from a comparison with the works of at least the earlier ages of Egyptian power. In the sanctuaries of Palenque are found sculptured representations of idols, which resemble the most ancient gods of Egypt and Syria. Again, in the sanctuaries of Palenque are found sculptured representations of idols, which resemble the most ancient gods of Egypt and of Syria. Palinspheres and zodiacs exist. Zodiacs, which exhibit a superior astronomical and chronological system to that which was possessed by the Egyptians.
Superior astronomical and chronological system to that which was possessed by the Egyptians. Anybody who's seen some earlier studies that I've done or shown, and I tried to give this breakdown to some folks who want to hear no part of it, when I showed you in the scriptures how Egypt and Syria were always tied together, and I showed you the tie between Egypt and Syria during a time when Napoleon was conquering Egypt, and what was really going on, what land he was really in during that time when he was supposedly conquering Egypt. He was over here in the Americas fighting the British, right? For these lands over here. Okay, I was showing you the correlation. All right, and I use that to also show you in the Bible, Egypt and Syria are always mentioned together because they're closely tied. And here you see again, right here in this study, they're closely tied. Again, they're usually mentioned together. And that's for a reason.
A superior astronomical and chronological system to that which was possessed by the Egyptians. Let's not forget, this is from Harvard University. Exist. Zodiacs, which exhibit a superior astronomical and chronological system to that which was possessed by the Egyptians. A superior astronomical and chronological system to that which was possessed by the Egyptians. Let's not forget, this is from Harvard University. Foreign Quarterly Review. Have you ever heard of Louis Agassiz? Because as you can see here, let me just zoom in a little bit, right? This is Louis Agassiz, again, Geological Sketches, 1866, this version of it, and we're gonna go right to, basically, it's right in the beginning almost, and it says here, contents, page 1, Volume 1, America the Old World. America the Old World. Again, firstborn among the continents. Firstborn among the continents. Though so much later in culture and civilization than some more recent birth, America, so far as her physical history is concerned, has been falsely denominated the New World. Again, has been falsely falsely denominated the New World. This is not the New World. This is the true Old World. Hers was the first dry land lifted out of the waters. Hers, the first shore washed by the ocean that enveloped all the earth beside. And while Europe, listen to this, while Europe was represented only by islands rising here and there above the sea. Oh, sorry about that. America already stretched in an unbroken line of land from Nova Scotia to the far west. Again, America, the Old World.
And I want you to know this part of our history because people
America, the Old World.
Erased it. And we'll get to that later on in the program. Erased it intentionally. Erased it intentionally.
Why would...
Did you see the Ankh? Did you see it? Did you see the Ankh?
Why would so many people be covering up the evidence? Why would so many...
Europe was represented only by islands rising here and there above the sea. Oh, sorry about that. America already stretched in an unbroken line of land from Nova Scotia to the far west. Again, America, the Old World.
And I want you to know this part of our history because people erased it. And we'll get to that later on in the
Egyptian Ankh cross in Mexico. In Mexico, why? Why? Why is it there? What were they doing? Why would it be over here? That's a Kemetic thing, right? You say? African, you say? Why is it here? And it's old as hell. In Aztec, the Ankh means life.
The program. Erased it intentionally. Erased it intentionally.
Why would so many people be covering up the evidence of earlier civilizations in the Americas?
Why would they? That's a great question. Why would so many people be covering up the information regarding the Americas? Why would they be hiding this? What is the purpose?
I think some people have called it a colonial cover-up, a colonial archaeological conspiracy. There's two sides to this story. In one side of the story is the way America was conquered by basically Anglo-Saxons, and in that conquest of the Americas, what they confronted was an indigenous people who had inhabited that realm for tens of thousands of years. We now know, and the first thing they did was to attempt to exterminate them physically, to get them out of the way. And when that became objectionable, the next measure was to exterminate their culture, to rub it out, to pour scorn upon it, to say,
Cause you to discontinue from thine heritage. That's what the Most High said he was going to do. And that's what they did when they came over here. This is how it happened. They came over and they started to wipe out our history. They tried to wipe us out. They had to destroy us, take away our history, take away everything about us, strip us down so that they can repackage us and sell a new version of us. That's what they did. They took away our true history. Not just of who we are, but our lands, the truth about our lands that go along with the truth about who we are. They go together.
Say that it was of no value, that in a sense, the absurd and monstrous argument was that the Native Americans deserved what was done to them because they were supposedly not capable of any high culture. We now know that that's completely untrue, and that was a conspiracy. That was a conspiracy to destroy Native American culture and thus to legitimize the conquest and the massive theft of land. And it carried on into the 20th century with the so-called boarding schools, where Native American children, almost all,
and it carried on into the boarding schools, right? Of course, this is how they help to destroy you and disconnect you from your past, from your true history. They forced us to send our children to their schools so they can re-indoctrinate us into their way, to their understanding, to their perception, to their idea of the world. They took away the truth and they repackaged their bullshit and their lies to redirect us.
all of them were taken away from their families, hundreds of miles away, and put in schools and taught that their culture was rubbish and indoctrinated with Western culture.
And indoctrinated with bullshit.
All right, so quickly I want to read from this newspaper article that I found. It was from it says here, the Kansas City Journal, from Monday, October the 12th, 1896. And the title is Prehistoric Man, the Human Race and Its Dispersions. How long has the earth been people, and when and where was the beginning? All right, so we've been doing a lot of research, right? Correlating a lot of things that, America is the true old world. All right, more and more evidence is just going to keep coming out. We're just going to keep finding all these investigations, studies, articles, documented, recorded, historical chronicles, and information, right, that existed that never was taught to us. All right, so this is one of those. All right, so let's see what they have to say in this article. All right, because we are talking about, a lot of Egyptian resemblances here in America, and the truth is that this is the source, this is their origins, and that's why there is some resemblances here to all the old world civilizations. We have all that here. All right, it's not just like we're similar to Egyptians or we're similar to the Hindu or all that. It's everything.
Exactly, everything. This is ground zero for everything, people. This is the old world. It all started here. Everything that you see throughout the rest of the world, it had its genesis right here in the Americas.
Because this is the source. So from here, it's spread out to the rest of the world. All right, so let's see what they say right here. All right, so I'm just going to belly flop to this part of the article, and it says, after correlating all data that have been made public to the present time, all right, the conclusion is unavoidable that the oldest civilization was in the Yucatan and Central America. All right, again, the Kansas City Journal in 1896 wrote this. They're telling you that if you really do the research and you start compiling all this information, all this evidence, it's unavoidable. All right?
Unavoidable, undeniable, unmistakable. You can't argue with it when you consider the facts.
That the oldest civilization was in the Yucatan and Central America. Future discoveries may change this conclusion. It seems that Egypt was first peopled by immigrants from the Yucatan. Say what? It seems that Egypt was first peopled by the immigrants from Yucatan.
When he's talking about Egypt right here, he's talking about the Egypt over there. And he's trying to tell you that Egypt over there was first peopled by the immigrants from the people who came over here, immigrating over there, because that's what we were doing. Our people were going everywhere.
Space will allow only a few facts that clearly indicate the truth of this assertion. First, the pyramids of Yucatan are some of them much larger than any found in Egypt. All right, much larger than any found in Egypt. That of Cheops not accepted. All right, and Giza. Second, the pyramids of Egypt bear structural evidence of having been modeled on those of Yucatan, notably of the one at Coloma, which covers 23 acres. Third, the early Egyptians and the Mayas of Yucatan had the same system of reckoning time, but the Mayas developed a system that was far superior. Again, we got that in the Foreign Quarterly Review, right? Far superior or excelled.
That's right.
In which antedates that of Egypt is older than Egypt.
Older,
all right?
Exactly.
Fourth, the Mayas manufactured cement that was of the same material as that of ancient Egypt. Fifth, the architecture of Yucatan is of the same general type as that of an ancient Egypt, but it is finer and seems to have been the model that the Egyptians attempted to imitate.
It was the model. The pyramids over here were the model that they attempted to imitate over there. Wow.
They attempted to imitate our models from here, America. 6, the art of both countries as displayed in their ceramics and architecture, is of the same type or school, that of Yucatan, being much more highly developed. Alright, again, this was an article written in the Kansas City Journal, Monday, October 12th, 1896, if you want to look it up. Prehistoric man, they're telling you straight up in this article back in 1896 that we were the source, we were the cradle of civilization, and we foreign quarterly review. At Mitlan, there exists the remains of a palace which is of considerable extent. Its architecture, though distinguished by characteristics peculiarly American and different from that of any nation with which we are familiar, is to our view marked by features of stately grandeur and melancholy beauty. The roof of the portico is supported by plain cylindrical columns, no type of which we believe elsewhere exists. It doesn't exist anywhere else. The facade of the palace is covered with a beautiful matwork of basket scroll, which is a characteristic ornament of all the Toltecan monuments, which is often found in the sepulchral chambers of the same extraordinary people, and which Rossellini, by a singular coincidence, found in those of Egypt, among others of the magnificent scroll ornaments, copies of which decorate his liberations. It is curious that the ground plan of this palace is the Egyptian Tau. Again, it is curious that the ground plan of this palace is the Egyptian Tau. All right? The Egyptian Tau. Again, the T or the cross, the Tau, the Taf. It's Aboriginal, Paleo-Hebrew, one of the letters, right? The cross sticks, where energies intersect, a sacred place, a monument, the emblem of the Garden of Eden. The city of gold, X marks the spot, right? All right. Finally, statues sculptured in a purely classical style, unlike the rude deformities of Mexican art, have been found in the neighborhood of Otumba, Mitlan, Xochicalco, and the magnificent flower temple of Oaxaca, or Waka, right? Waka, Wakanda, sacred place. These are not the works of barbarians, as Robertson intimates. All right, so these weren't barbarians building these, having no metal implements to work with. This misconception is the result of the before mentioned confusion of two eras, and this confusion continues today. We got to break that. We got to really do research.
Look at all these structures over here, man. Way more grand than anything you see over there. Anything you've ever seen documented from over there. Come on, man. You got to put this together. Why were they making grander, more sophisticated pyramids over here than those over there?
Oh, wake up. Open mind. You got to prove your theories. You got to read research. All right? It is true that the Mexican semi-barbarians produced their root sculptures with stone utensils, but the civilized people who preceded them worked with copper implements, some of which have been discovered in their tombs. There's two different kinds of people here. One with science, architecture, math, civilization, and another one that came after that has just simple rude sculptures with stone utensils. Vases agreeing both in shape and ornament with the earliest specimens of Egyptian and Etruscan pottery have been found in their sepulchral excavations. Moreover, evidences of an amount of civilization and of social comfort which are not to be found among the popular and boosted monuments of Egypt are furnished by the architectural memorials of this great, singular, and almost unknown people.
Unknown, huh?
They say that you are unknown. And
the hidden ones. Who are the hidden ones? Who are the Most High's hidden ones? Exactly. We were hidden over here in this land over here. We were hidden from them, separated, holy, right? Separate, holy, separate, separated from them until we messed up. And then he had to send these other people on us, send them against us, right? To bring us down because we messed up, right? We were separate and holy. Sanctified us to himself, cut us off from everybody else, kept us safe, hidden from everyone else until he allowed us to be found.
they say that you disappeared. And they say that you came from Africa. All right, so again, this guy's just saying, you know, there's evidences of amount of civilization and social comfort which are not to be found among the popular and boasted monuments of Egypt. It just shows basically what he's saying. You're just seeing pyramids, but you're not seeing the whole town, the whole city. Roads are to be found not only in the vicinity of their great cities, but at considerable distance from them. Like I just said, all these ancient ruins are all connected by roads and highways in the middle of the jungle. That's what they're realizing today.
They use current technology called LiDAR technology, right? That they've used, and they've went and scanned. Look at all that green out there. They've went and scanned all of this forestry. You know what they find? They find more structures. More structures. There's plenty of more structures and towns and cities and everything covered up by all of that forestry out there. Everything has been hidden. He hid everything. The Most High hid everything that he wanted to hide, man. Look at all of the stuff that has been hidden. And he did it with nature. With nature. Either trees and all that forestry, or he did it with water and dirt and layers of, you know, sediment and so forth, right? From many different years of flooding and different atmospheric events.
Hey, this year they're letting us know, and this book is from 1836, this article. Why didn't they teach us this in school?
Why did they want to hide
Who knows? We might have become archaeologists.
That's why they didn't. They didn't want us to become archaeologists. They wanted to be able to control the information. They wanted to be able to keep things hidden. If they motivated us to want to go discover and dig up and find our history, because we knew that we were on the old world, the old land, then we would begin to dig. And not only that, we would have a certain pride in where we are. See, they convinced us that we were from somewhere else so that we would have no pride in the land, so that we wouldn't do what you see other people do when there are attempts to conquer them in their land. They would fight. There would be uprisings. It would be an issue keeping those people subdued, but they subdued us on our own land by convincing us that we were from somewhere else, so that we would be emotionally detached from the land that we were on and wouldn't see it as ours.
We might have had an interest to dig into this stuff, to our own history, and vast and magnificent.
And this is also how they hide the truth about the Bible. A lot of people say, well, if the Bible is true, then how come, they haven't found this, and where's all the bones and blah, blah, blah. It's because we're on top of them. No one's digging over here for all of that stuff. They're not looking over here. They're pointing you in that direction. They're doing misdirection on you, telling you, oh, it's over there. And then when they dig over there and they're not finding the things you think they should find in order to prove to you that the Bible is true, then you say, aha, see, aha. But no, the aha is on you. They've tricked you.
And grandeur, we would have probably been the archaeologists discovering and writing about this today. All right, but we weren't given that chance. They told us everything was over there and that side over there. Again, roads are to be found not only in the vicinity of their great cities, but at considerable distance from them, artificially constructed like the Roman military roads of large squared blocks of stone. These roads, on the same principle as the railroad, affect a continued level. They are in fact viaducts, as contrasted with aqueducts, which these people also constructed, where they traverse acclivities. They are parapeted, and the evidences both of regular posting stations at regular intervals, and of the regular division of the distances upon the principle of our milestones upon turnpike roads, are still to be observed. Bridges constructed of the same durable materials and traversing mountain torrents are also to be found. Where is all this in the so-called Old World and the other side in Egypt?
Where is it?
Cyclopean in the forms of their masonry, they are characterized throughout by the same titanium character of wild and exaggerated grandeur.
Take the
Like I said, where is all this over there in the so-called old world? Why are they finding all of this stuff over here and not over there? You got to make it make sense. See, it's the new world to them, but it doesn't mean it is the new world because it's the new world to them.
The Mississippi Valley civilization, which plays an important role in this book. The famous sites are sites like Cahokia or Poverty Point, or the Ohio sites such as High Bank and Newark. Amazing, huge geometrical earthworks.
You just saw the mound, right? Did you understand these are burial mounds? Right? You understand these are burial
Civilization, which
mounds?
plays an important role in this book. The famous sites are sites like Cahokia or Poverty Point, or the Ohio sites such as High.
What you're looking at right now are burial mounds. This is what you got to visualize. This is what your people were talking about when Father Abraham was going into the sepulcher, right? There's a opening. There would be an opening that you can walk into these, and inside you would find possessions and the bones and the remains of your ancestors. This is why they don't have all sorts of bones and everything on display. It's simply covered up or left undug, right? They just turned it into a historical site, but don't let you understand what it truly is. And this is the reason why there's so much hidden and concealed, so much you don't know, because they won't dare dig that shit up and show it to you, because the truth would tell it all. If they actually opened all of these mounds up and brought everything out of them, what they would find would kill their entire lie.
Bank and Newark. Amazing, huge geometrical earthworks. Absolutely stunning. But the trouble is that in the 18th and 19th and 20th centuries, there was massive, large-scale destruction of these ancient monuments. They were not considered to be worth preserving. The needs of agriculture and industry.
So the ones they did dig up, look what they did. They dug it up, told you that there was nothing of significance inside of them. And then what did they do? They took it and tried to tell you that if the stuff that they dug up from these places that they actually found over there in the other land. They dig it up here and then tell you they found it over there.
Were more important. So what we can say is that around about 90% of the monuments that were in the Mississippi Valley in, say, 1700 are gone now.
All right, so we're back in this journal again, the Kansas City Journal, Monday, October 12th, 1896, right? Prehistoric man, right? We're going to continue. All right, so he's saying that these facts are: there are literature, art, and sciences that have left their evidences in North America that are more ancient, all right, more ancient and more worthy of careful study than any of that afforded by either ancient Greece or Rome.
So far as many of the relics and other data are concerned, I have observed them for myself. So this is the person who's writing this has a firsthand account of the relics, right? What does he say? The facts are there are literature, arts, and sciences that have left their evidences in North America that are more ancient. Listen, more ancient, older, and more worthy of careful study, meaning the more significant, they're more what's the word I'm looking for? Advanced, right? More advanced and worthy of study than any of that afforded by either ancient Greece or Rome. And they've convinced you that ancient Greece and ancient Rome were the epitome of civilizations. Wow. The late discoveries of the clay tablets under the foundations of Nineveh, listen to this, prove that in our study of history, we have commenced a long way from the beginning. These tablets are in the possession, if I remember correctly, of the University of Pennsylvania. Why exactly are these tablets that they found in Nineveh in the possession of the University of Pennsylvania at this time? What is the purpose of bringing stuff, if that's the old world over there, for bringing it from Nineveh over there and bringing it to house it inside of a university in the Americas? What sense does that make? See, you gotta learn how to get around the lie. You gotta see the bullshit. You gotta learn how to steer around it, right? Because it was here. Nineveh was here. That's why the stuff that the tablets that they found under the foundations of Nineveh went into the possession of a university in Pennsylvania in the Americas.
The time will come, all right? Remember, this is written in 1896, October 12th, 1896. All right?
Here's your
My people, it's right now. This is the class, all right? You don't have to go to no college, university, all right? The time will come, the time has come when we are basically including this in our studies, that this is the true old world and you are the ancient one, the original, the so-called antediluvian. So again, you know, this was an article by Edwin Walters from the Kansas City Journal, October 12th, 1896. The Kansas City Journal, 1896. This is on page 6. If you're interested to go look that up, page 6, Prehistoric Man, the Human Race and its Dispersions. All right, the Maya, civilized. The Africans, Asians, and Europeans. Foreign Quarterly Review. Now continues, says, these facts being admitted or established, the question is, do the monuments of New Spain, as displayed in the illustrations of the works under review, correspond with 3 unvarying and identifying characteristics? Our reply is yes, they correspond entirely. Some of the pyramids, as we have said, are larger than those of Egypt. Some of them are different in their model, having somewhat of an Indian character, bearing strong affinity to pyramidal temples still extant in Japan.
The people were here. The people over there that built those temples and built those pyramids started here. They came from here, went to those other places, built pyramids and temples and structures over there. You get it? It all started here.
And it says, see the works of Sir Thomas Raffles for that. The Pyramid of Cholula exhibits a most singular identity with the model of the temples of Belus. Okay, so again, the Pyramid of Cholula exhibits a most singularly identity with the model of the temples of Belus. Belus Jupiter, Bel, Tower of Babel, described by Herodotus, and which by many scholars has been considered to be the scriptural Tower of Babel. All right. It consists of the 8 graduated square towers, each rising above the other.
Remember, I told you guys in my last study, when we went over the lands, that this had to be the place. Remember, they were scattered, right? They were scattered after the Tower of Babel, and the land that they were on, where the Tower of Babel was the land of Shem, and everybody was moved either north or south based off of their inheritance. But Shem didn't have to go north and south. Shem was already where they needed to be. They were already in their lands. They were just spread out throughout the rest of their lands, right, over time. But they were already in their land of inheritance. We know the Tower of Babel has to be in the land of Shem.
And terminating in a topmost sanctuary, dedicated apparently to the same solar god, but there are more singular analogies between the forms of some of the pyramids of New Spain and some of the most ancient pyramids of Egypt. Among the pyramids on the plain of Saqqara is one consisting of 4 graduated steps. The illustrations of the Antiquities Mexicanas furnish a copy of the Mexican pyramid of exactly the same form and nearly the same dimensions. So again, which one is the duplicate? They try to tell us that, this is that these Aztec and Mayan temples are a lot sooner, that they are not as old as the Egyptian pyramids, but we're crushing all this illusion, all this hijack, chronology-wise, history-wise, right? They try to tell us that, this is that these Aztec and Mayan temples are a lot sooner, that they are not as old as the Egyptian pyramids, but we're crushing all this illusion, all this hijack, chronology-wise, history-wise, right? So again, the illustrations of the Antiquities Mexicanas.
Also, let's get this. They also tell you that we get the calendar, right, from the Mayans. Why would the people of the old world come to the new world and then adopt the calendar and understanding of time and get their concept of time from the new people, from the people who came after them? No, you wouldn't do that. You would adopt something that's more accurate and precise than what you have, right? That's the only thing that makes sense. If you want, you do what I'm saying? Why would they adopt the calendar of these new people in the new world? No, because you know that these are the old people in the old world, and you understand that their knowledge of time and everything is more accurate than yours. They would have a better understanding than you do of time. That's the reason why we use the calendar now and not some older form or some other form of timekeeping and understanding that came from Europe and Africa and so forth. Come on, you got to use logic.
And that's the book I told you, this 9-volume book by Lord Kingsborough. It's available online. Just Google it. Says it furnishes a copy of the Mexican pyramid of exactly the same form and nearly the same dimensions as the one in Egypt and the plain of Saqqara.
Look at here at the bottom. There are numerous rock-hewn monuments scattered throughout Central America, which the natives call granaries of the giants. And we understand that if you understand that this being the old world, then you know that the giants were here. You understand the story of David and Goliath, and you apply that and understand it was here, then you understand there were giants here. If you understand what happened when Joshua and the rest of the tribes of Israel were together and they were going into the promised land, and they had to send people out to go scout out the lands, the Canaanites, because the Canaanites were on their land. And they had to go and get the Canaanites out of there. And so they went to go scout the land, and they came back with a evil report, right? and because they were scared. They were scared. They saw giants, so they were scared, and they were like, "Oh man, these guys are bigger than us. We can't defeat them." And the Most High got mad, right? We understand that story, right? Okay, so then you understand, the stories of Og and and Bashan and all of that. It was all here. It was all here. If you go and read many stories, you understand that the Americas and a lot of the ancient Indian stories and myths and so forth have a lot to do. They all talk about giants.
I look it up. Again, descending galleries at a particular astronomical angle of declination lead to central chambers, either for the purpose of mystery or sepulture, in the Mexican pyramids as well as the Egyptian. Quite enough has been said to prove the architectural identity. It is fair to infer that tribes of the same architectural family built both. Okay, again, it is fair to infer that tribes of the same architectural family built both. In that case, they would be contemporaneous, but the evidences of the same affinity or identity multiply as we proceed. So he just said that means they would be living or of the same time at least. Okay, so he didn't say Egypt is older. He's saying this is basically concluding that they were at least around the same time because they have the same kind of technology, structures, architecture,
Listen to what they're telling you. They're telling you that the pyramids over here are just as old, if not older, than the pyramids over there, which means, listen to what's being inferred here. And you dig what I'm saying? They're telling that the pyramids here are just as old as the pyramids over there, which means that this world over here has to be, if you believe that's the old world, that this has to be just as old. And you can't believe this is a new world, right? You can't believe that. So at the time when Egyptian pyramids and stuff are supposedly being built over there, they're being built over here at the same time. People were existing over here at the same time. So that means people were here way before even the supposed Assyrian captivity, meaning they were here even at the time of the Egyptian captivity, right? That would mean what you understand about the movement of the peoples is wrong. It's wrong. Because according to your understanding, those who are willing to believe the biblical report is that, and your interpretation of it is that, they didn't come over here. The 10 tribes came over here after the Assyrian captivity and scattering of Israel. But the architecture and everything else tell you that everything over here is just as old, if not older. Mostly older is what they tell you. Everything over here is pretty much older, right? So how is that possible for what you believe to be true and this to be true at the same time? See, that means you got to take your feelings out of it and you got to go with the records.
Language, the hieroglyphic system, everything. All right, so, but we know this is older over here. All right, so, because remember, his hijack from what he thinks is the truth is that the old world's on that side. So his perspective and orientation is different than ours.
I think, honestly speaking, that the majority of archaeologists who held to that old model that has now been completely discredited, honestly...
The old model, which has been completely discredited. You hear that? Completely.
Believed what they were saying to be true. They felt that that's what the evidence said. And then their careers became connected to that idea, and they became very reluctant to accept.
Oh, their careers were connected to the old idea that they had, so they couldn't come off of it. They had to dig their heels in their claws into the old misconception that they had and hold tight. And then not only hold tight, but they went out of their way to try to make the evidences prove their position.
Accept any idea that threatened that. And I think it's more that natural territoriality of human beings rather than a deliberate attempt to hide the truth of the past from us. But the effect has been as overwhelming or worse than a deliberate attempt to cover up the past, because 100,000 years of the human story has just been completely shut down until now.
It's called Queen Mu and the Egyptian Sphinx by Augustus Le Plongeon, MD. The learned wranglers on this shadowy and dim point forget that all leading geologists now agree in the opinion that America is the oldest known continent.
All leading geologists now agree. All leading geologists now agree. This is a long time ago. In the opinion that America is the oldest known continent on the face of the planet. End of story.
On the face of the planet. All right? Boom! That came out of nowhere, right? But we've already read and heard who? Louis Agassiz, the most renowned geologist, tell us that America is the first land, is the true old world. All right? And what is Augustus telling us? Right? That all the leading geologists now agree, not just one, all the leading geologists now agree in the opinion that America is the oldest known continent on the face of the planet, that the fossil remains of human beings found in various parts of it, far distant from each other, prove that man lived there in times immemorial, and that we have not the slightest ray of light to illumine the darkness that surrounds the origin of those primeval men.
All the leading geologists now agree in the opinion that America is the oldest known continent on the face of the planet, that the fossil remains of human beings found in various parts of it, far distant from each other, prove that man lived there in times immemorial, from the beginning, in other words, and that we have not the slightest ray of light to illumine the darkness that surrounds the origin of those primeval men. Wow. Wow. Prove the fossil remains of human beings found in various parts of it. Prove. Not leads us to believe, or, it makes us speculate. No, it proves that America is the oldest known continent on the face of the earth, and that the people here are more ancient than those anywhere else.
All right, we got in the past videos, right, how they're finding human bones in these deep layers, right? They're supposed to be millions of years old, right? All right, so at this time, all geologists knew this was the real oldest continent, the oldest known continent on the face of the planet, plane. Furthermore, it is now admitted by the generality of scientists that man, far from descending from a single pair located in a particular portion of Earth's surface, has appeared on every part of it, where the biological conditions have been propitious to his development and maintenance. All right,
it is now admitted by the generality of scientists that man, far from descending from a single pair located in a particular portion of the Earth's surface, has appeared on every part of it. Every part of it. What do we get in our last study? That the entire Earth was divided, and that the Most High scattered the people throughout the four corners of it. That out of Africa theory is dead. It's dead.
Telling you, not just in Africa, no out of Africa theories here. Again, he told you in the beginning of this book, this ain't about theory. The Maya sages doubtless has reached similar conclusions, since they call their country Mayak. That is, the land first emerged from the bosom of the deep. All right, the Maya, they knew this was the oldest land, Mayak, right? We got Agassiz, right? Louis Agassiz, who told us this is the first land out of the primordial waters. All right, now the Maya, they call their country Mayak. That is, the land first emerged from the bosom of the deep. And we read in Genesis, right? Let there be land. Let the waters subside. Let the land show. And there was land. The first land, America, the country of the shoe. And the Egyptians, according to Herodotus, boasted that their ancestors in the lands of the West, all right, were the oldest men on earth. All right, quote Herodotus. Go research that. He's telling you that the Egyptians, their ancestors in the lands of the West. So if you're in Africa, America's to the West.
The Egyptians, according to Herodotus, boasted that their ancestors came from the lands of the West and were the oldest men on earth. Again, the Egyptians boasted that their ancestors in the lands of the West were the oldest men on earth. Can we close the case now?
We're the oldest men on earth.
Close the case now. Can we stop playing around like it ain't what it is? Can we stop bullshitting? Are we
Africa, America's to the west. We're the oldest men on earth.
There were long periods when the Americas were cut off from the rest of the world, cut off from the conflicts and the difficulties.
Right, because the Most High cut off his chosen people from everybody else. He kept the land sacred. He kept the people sacred. That's why he called them his hidden ones, because he hid them from the rest of the world, and he hid them over here.
Going on in the so-called old world. What a beautiful and amazing place for a civilization to evolve, a civilization that was separate, that was different, that had its own way of doing things. That is one of the reasons why I think we need to take America very, very seriously, because we now know that the archaeological story we've been taught about the Americas is complete and utter bullshit. Complete and utter bullshit.
Queen Mu and the Egyptian Sphinx by
utter
Augustus
bullshit.
Le Plongeon.
It is to the monumental inscriptions and to the books of the Mayas that we must turn if we wish to learn about the primeval traditions of mankind, all right, the Mayas, the development of civilization, and the events that took place centuries before the dim myths recorded as occurrences at the beginning of our written history. Historians, when writing on the universal history of the race, have never taken into consideration that of man in America, okay? Like Graham Hancock told you, there was a doctrine, a dogma, and historians, when they were talking about the universal history of the race, of the human race, they never took into consideration that of man in America.
No, they hit it.
The role that in remote ages American nations played on this world stage.
Right.
The importance, what we did, what we provided. Have you not read the American Indian contributions to the World Encyclopedia? Have you not read that? How important and what influence we had and what we, the role we played in the world stage. Again, and the influence they exerted over the populations of Asia, Africa, and Europe. All right, Amaru Khans, Amaru priest kings, the Amaru priest kings, the role they played on the world stage and the influence they exerted over the populations of Asia, Africa, and Europe. Still, as far as we can scan the long vista of the past centuries, the Mayas seem to have had direct and intimate communications with them. This fact is indeed no new revelation, as proved by the universality of the name Maya, which seems to have been as well known by all civilized nations thousands of years ago as is today that of the English. Thus, we meet with it in Japan, the islands of the Pacific, Hindustan. Now remember, Hindustan, that's the real name of India. Okay? Asia Minor, Egypt, Greece, Equatorial Africa, North and South America, as well as in the countries known to us as Central America, which in those times composed the Maya Empire. Alright, all of Central America. Wherever found, the name Maya is synonymous with power, wisdom, and learning. Alright? Wherever you're gonna hear or see this word, Maya, it is synonymous with power, wisdom, and learning.
Got a little bit of a better understanding now, Israel. Hope you guys have seen enough and heard enough to be inquisitive. Go start digging and looking for more information. Hope you've seen and heard enough to understand the depths as your enemies went to hide the truth from you. Look what they tried to hide. No, not tried. Look what they did hide. Put it together for yourself. Why? Why did they hide all this? Don't get mad at those who will try to enlighten you, illuminate you, and bring you into the light. Get mad at those who drag you into the darkness. Come out. Come out. I conclude this review. Again, shout out to Caramel. Great work. Great work. Yes, great research. Check out his channel, Caramel. How? Check him out. Show that brother some love. Dig into the rest of his works, man. And there's a lot that you'll learn from him. So I definitely recommend you get over there and go check him out. All right? So again, that'll conclude this one. I hope you're edified. No, I don't hope. I pray that you were edified. And that the Most High provides the increase and grants you knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Let us give all praise, honor, and glory to our Heavenly Father, Yahweh, in the name of our beloved Master, Lord, and Savior, Hamashiach Yahweh Shai, Wahar Rakakadash. All praise is due. I'll see you on the next one. Shalom.